Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And this is the last one of the day. It was quite a job getting up this morning after yesterday's mammoth effort of doing nearly 30 videos. But I've come in, I've done me 10. I'm out 1 hour every hour, and I'm away. And I hope that the work I put in both yesterday and over the years has paid off. And that if you are one of the regulars who's yet to subscribe, today will be the day. But we have to ask, why are so many people still supporting the SNP when we know how bad it is? Well, we've got a story here which may go some way to explain it. Because it's basically the SNP supporters aren't being told the truth. Now, we know the SNP lie. They lie all the time. Don't have a problem with that. We know their lies. We immediately disbelieve them. Trouble is, of course, that their supporters do believe them. But what's worse is this story here, because it isn't the SNP lying, it's the BBC. The BBC have made such a big, massive blunder that SNP supporters will go, see, look, this is why the SNP are so good. But in actual fact, what they need to be saying is, see here, this is why the United Kingdom government is so good and why we have to stay in the Union, because otherwise we'd be screwed. We're going to have a look at this news here. The BBC have made a mistake that is absolutely immense. Here goes. So, BBC Scotland forced into grovelling apology over Scottish Government £107 billion, billion with a B, blunder. This is cracking. The BBC wrongly attributed a huge £107 billion cost of living package that was provided by the UK government to Humza Yousaf's administration during a Reporting Scotland show on Hogmanay. So you're sitting there, it's New Year's Eve, you're about to go out, go stick the news on, we'll see what's on, boom, boom, boom. And they get this story up there. You know, the Scottish government are going to invest £107 billion into the cost of living package for Scots in these difficult times. And you think, oh yeah, great, that's why you couldn't get that from England, would you? That's why we vote SNP. They look after us, they look after us. And it's complete and utter bollocks. It's not true. For a start, the Scottish government's budget is only 59 billion. You tell me how you get a £107 billion package out of 59 billion. Well, I would imagine Shona Robertson could, because, her maths ain't good. But it's impossible. Of course it's impossible. It should have been obvious. But the BBC puts this out without fact-checking it and without saying, actually, guys, this isn't from Scotland. This is what the UK government gave us. And without being in part of the United Kingdom, we'd have got sod all. You wouldn't have got that £109 billion, or £107 billion, whatever it was, £107 billion if you weren't in the United Kingdom. So all of a sudden, you think voting SNP is helping? You think if you were an independent nation that you'd get this £107 billion from Westminster? You'd get bugger all. Bus fare home, mate. That's what you get. Enough to buy a ping pong ball. Unbelievable, isn't it? Buy you a dildo so you can go yourself. Anyway, the BBC has been forced into a grovelling apology after it wrongly claimed the Scottish Government was providing this huge £107 billion to Scots to help them get through the cost of living crisis. And in an embarrassing blunder, this help is actually almost double the entire total budget for the SNP executive. In a news package on Reporting Scotland on Hogmanay, the reporter and the graphic attributed the package of help to Humza Yousaf's administration, and it came from no such place. It came from a story about Scots struggling to pay their bills and what politicians were doing to help them. Well, what they were doing is, the UK government down in Westminster said, look, we'll give you £107 billion so you can sort this mess out. And what happened to it? Well, first of all, the BBC say it came from Humza Yousaf. No wonder the SNP are voting for the SNP. They think this shit's real. They think, oh, look, this is what the SNP are doing for us. What they're not saying is, actually, this is what Westminster are doing for us. And if you vote for the SNP, you wouldn't have got this. If you'd have voted and got independence, you wouldn't have got that. You'd be sitting there now. You'd be cooking your cats, mate. That's the only thing you'd have to eat. You'd be poverty-stricken with your independent Scottish pound going through the toilet at the same time as everything else. And then the Greens You'd have the Greens going, hey, we're going to ban the car now. And there's nothing you can do because you're voting these people in like lunatics. Viewers originally pointed out that the Scottish Government's annual budget is only £59.7 billion, meaning it cannot contribute that much to those struggling in the country. And it was actually the UK government funding, which is the £104 billion package, with the error being quite an obvious one. The statement originally said, we recognise the cost of living challenges families are facing, which is why we are spending £104 billion supporting households with bill. This includes support for the most vulnerable, with 3 million households expected to benefit from the £150 warm home discount and up to £900 in cost of living payments for those on means tested benefits. This is attributed, though, to the Scottish Government instead of where it actually came from, Westminster. And this is the problem. These lunatics who vote SNP see this thing and they think it's real. They think the SNP are delivering this. And they don't see the truth that the SNP are incapable of doing this. The SNP have got £1 billion, probably £2 billion, black hole in their own finances. Where on earth are they going to magic up 107 billion? Pluck it out their backsides? Have a route around the back of the sofa in Butte House? Don't think so. The BBC posted an apology on its clarification page, which read, during our report on energy prices and the cost of living, we said the Scottish Government was spending 104 billion supporting households with bills. We should have said it was the UK Government that was responsible for this expenditure. We apologise for this error. And thus telling everybody, only they're not, are they? Because they put it on a web page. They didn't put it out there and come onto the television and say it. That it wasn't the SNP. So most people in the SNP probably still think it's the SNP because these people going to go to the BBC website and look at the corrections page? No, the BBC need to go out onto Reporting Scotland and say, actually, we got it wrong and we said it was the SNP government providing this and it wasn't. It was Westminster. It was those jolly good boys down in Westminster who looked at the incompetent handling of our economy by the fools at Holyrood and said, these people need help. And they raced to help us like the 7th Cavalry, bringing lots and lots of money that's needed that you wouldn't have got under the SNP. What is going on? And this now, do you see? This is why the SNP voters keep voting, because they think this shit's real. They really do. In their head, they think this is right. Anyway, viewers on social media originally pointed out the error with one writing, apparently, Humsey Yousaf's Scottish Government is claiming to be spending 104 billion supporting households with bills. The Scottish budget for 2024-25 has been set at 59.7 billion. Go figure. It's a joke, isn't it? The SNP executive rely heavily on funding from the Westminster Government to help deal with the cost of living crisis and often complain about not having levers to do more, but in creating its own social security body has been beset with delays and problems, including a huge cost to the public purse. Oh yes, let us administer social security. Okay then. We've made a big mistake. It's costing us far more. We didn't know it was so expensive. Please take it back. And they aren't. They go, no, you got it now. And now the people in Scotland are going to sit there and they're going to starve and freeze, and because the money's not coming through on time. They haven't got all the infrastructure up. They didn't realise the costs. Nobody had told them that running this thing is hard because they think they're the SNP and they can do everything. And now they're finding out. There is a saying, and I use it a lot, and it's called fuck around and find out. Well, the SNP are fucking around. Now they're finding out. And unfortunately, those who vote for the SNP are also finding out all of a sudden that it ain't good. And that is why, of course, all these people are just running away from the SNP. It's why numbers are falling. It's why the polls show everything other. They're not going to do well. And it's things like this. But it's that example of the BBC, which is why the polls are still showing that they might get some votes. Tell the truth. Nobody would vote for them. They're incompetent. Anyway, I'm going to stop. It's a good one to finish on. It goes to show, A, the incompetency of the SNP, and B, the fact that the mainstream media are covering up and helping them. Because the BBC has not gone onto that show and said they made a mistake. They put a little error and correction in the back end of some website somewhere. Who the hell's ever going to see it? Coming up, I really am looking forward to the general election. It's going to be spectacular, isn't it? And when stories like this come out, and the BBC needs to go on and do this and correct it, but when these stories come out and everyone starts seeing it, And you do see increasingly, and we have them in here, we have the guys that come on here in the comment section and they say, well, I voted SNP, but I'm not doing it again because of this, because of that, because of something else. And they're starting to wise. And there was one, I can't remember who it was a few weeks ago. One of the comments was, I started watching your channel, I hate watching it, I didn't agree with anything. I thought, blah, 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 blah. And he was saying, but he said in there, he said, as it's gone on, as I'm listening to you, and I'm checking these things, and I realise that you're speaking truth. He says, I believed the BS that the SNP were putting out. He said, and what I'm seeing here from you, he said, was that actually that's not the truth. He says, and when you go and look at the truth, he says, it's absolutely terrifying. He says, and that's it, he's gone. He says he stopped his party membership, he's not voting for them, he's done with them for what they've done to him. And let's hope there's more and more like that. Serious question. If you are an SNP, an ex-SNP voter, or if you are an SNP voter, do a comment. Give me the comment. If you're an ex-SNP voter, tell me why you didn't vote for, you're not going to vote for them anymore. If you are an SNP voter, tell me why you think you should. You see the truth coming out. You see the awfulness of what they do, and you see the help that comes from being part of the union. Tell me why you still want to be independent. I'm genuinely interested. I am not mocking. I understand the desire for the independence movement. I just can't understand why you'd vote for the SNP to deliver it. They are absolutely the worst people. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much, each and every one of you who's watched the videos today. Do please hit the subscribe button. Definitely hit the like button. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and we will start this whole circus over again tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye. And it's Friday tomorrow.